Hi, welcome to Practice English 365. I'm Anna, and today we will practice English together. You will listen, repeat, and speak with me, just like in a real conversation. Our topic for today is weather. Now, let's get started. I grew up in a small town where the weather was always changing. Some mornings were warm and sunny, with the sky so blue that it felt like a painting. Other mornings were gray and rainy, with clouds covering everything. And in winter, the world turned white with snow. Weather was never just background. It shaped how we lived, what we did, and even how we felt. When I was a child, my friend Sarah and I loved sunny days in summer. We woke up early, looked out the window, and shouted, "It's sunny!" Then we ran outside barefoot. The ground was warm, the air smelled like flowers, and the sound of birds filled the sky. We rode our bikes until we were tired. Then we stopped at her house, drank cold lemonade, and laughed. I still remember Sarah saying, "Summer is the best season." I nodded. Yes, it feels like freedom. But sunny days sometimes turned into hot days. One afternoon, the sun was so strong that we could barely walk. My brother, Michael, said, "It's too hot. I can't breathe." I laughed and gave him an ice cream. "Here, this will help." We sat under a tree, sweating, but the ice cream made us smile. Heat can be tiring, but it also gives us sweet memories. Rain was different. Rain made the world softer. One time, I was walking home from school with my friend David. Dark clouds covered the sky. David asked, "Do you think it will rain?" I pointed at the clouds and said, "Yes, get ready." A few seconds later, rain poured down. We didn't have umbrellas. We ran, shouting, "Hurry!" Our shoes splashed in puddles, and our clothes were soaked, but we couldn't stop laughing. Later, when we got home, we said, "That was crazy, but fun." Rain can be annoying, but with friends, it becomes an adventure. Sometimes rain also felt peaceful. I remember sitting near the window with my mom, listening to raindrops on the roof. She said softly, "Listen, Anna, rain is like music." I closed my eyes and agreed. Yes, it's beautiful. Rain taught me to slow down. Snow was my favorite. In winter, everything turned white. One morning, I looked outside and shouted, "Snow!" My brother, Michael, and I put on coats, scarves, and boots. We ran outside, our breath visible in the cold air. We built a snowman with a carrot nose. I laughed and said, "He needs a hat." Michael found an old hat and placed it on top. The snowman looked funny, and we shouted, "Perfect!" Then we had a snowball fight. Our cheeks were red, our hands were frozen, but our hearts were full of joy. But snow also tested patience. One time, the bus was late because the road was icy. I stood with my friend Emily, shivering. I complained, "Why is it so cold?" She smiled and replied, "Because winter wants us to be strong." That answer made me laugh, but it also made me think. Spring was full of hope. The air was fresh, flowers bloomed, and the world felt alive again. I remember walking in the park with my friend Lena. The cherry blossoms were pink and white. She stopped, looked up, and whispered, "It's beautiful." Petals fell slowly, like snow, but softer. We stood there in silence, just watching. Spring reminded me that after cold and gray, color always returns. Spring rain was different from autumn rain. It was light, soft, and playful. I once walked with Sarah under the gentle drizzle. I said, "Should we hide?" She shook her head. "No, let's keep walking." We laughed as the small drops touched our hair. It felt refreshing, not heavy. Autumn was calm. Leaves turned red, yellow, and orange. The air smelled of earth and wood. One autumn, I visited Japan with my friend Hiroshi. We walked through a park full of maple trees. The ground was covered with leaves, like a colorful carpet. Hiroshi said, "This is my favorite season." I replied, "I can see why. It feels peaceful." Autumn weather always made me think about change and reflection. Back home, I also loved autumn evenings. The sky turned golden and the wind felt cool. My dad used to say, "Autumn reminds us to slow down." I agreed. On those evenings, I liked to drink warm tea and watch the sun go down earlier and earlier each day. Weather was not always kind. Sometimes storms came. One summer afternoon, I was at Emily's house when the sky turned dark. The wind blew hard. Thunder shook the windows. I said nervously, "This feels scary." Emily put her hand on my arm and said, "Don't worry, it will pass." Lightning flashed, and for a moment we sat quietly, listening to the heavy rain. After the storm, the air smelled fresh, and a rainbow appeared. We ran outside, pointed, and shouted together, "Look, a rainbow!" That rainbow felt like a promise of peace. Sometimes storms were stronger. One year, a big storm hit our town. The power went out. My family lit candles. My father said calmly, "Don't worry, we are safe here." We sat together in the dark, telling stories to pass the time. Outside, the wind howled, but inside, I felt comfort. When the storm ended, neighbors came out and asked each other, "Are you okay?" Weather can be dangerous, but it also brings people together. Fog was another kind of weather. I remember visiting the countryside with Michael. In the morning, Everything was covered in fog. We could barely see the road. Michael laughed. "Are we walking into a cloud?" I said, "Yes, it feels like magic." Fog made the world mysterious. It slowed us down, made us careful, but also gave us beauty. Wind also had stories. Sometimes it was gentle, carrying the smell of flowers in spring. Other times it was strong, pushing us as we walked. One autumn day, Lena and I were walking near the river. Her hat blew away. She shouted, "Catch it!" We ran, chasing the hat until we caught it. We were tired, but we laughed. Wind can be playful too. Traveling gave me even more memories. On the beach, Sarah and I once saw dolphins jumping in the sunlight. She shouted, "Did you see that?" I replied, "Yes, amazing." The weather was perfect, sunny, breezy, with waves sparkling. That day felt like a dream. Another trip was to the mountains with Emily and David. We hiked in cool autumn air, surrounded by trees. At night, it became cold. We built a fire, shared stories, and looked at the stars. Emily whispered, "The air feels so fresh here." I nodded, "Yes, it feels like freedom." Weather gave those moments their magic. But weather also created challenges. In summer, heat made it hard to work. In winter, snow made roads dangerous. In autumn, strong winds sometimes broke branches. And in spring, sudden rain ruined picnics. But every challenge brought lessons. Heat taught us patience. Snow taught us preparation. And rain taught us flexibility. And wind taught us to laugh at surprises. Animals also feel weather. My dog Max barked before storms, as if he knew they were coming. Birds sang loudly on sunny mornings, but hid on rainy days. Horses in the countryside walked slowly in the heat, but ran happily in cool weather. Watching animals showed me how weather connects us all. When I think about weather, I realize it is more than temperature or rain. Weather is part of our stories. Sunshine brings joy. Rain brings adventure and peace. Snow brings play and patience. Storms bring fear, but also unity. Wind brings surprise. Fog brings mystery. And gentle breezes bring calm. That's it for today's practice. Today we shared stories about weather, sunny days, rainy afternoons, snowy winters, spring blossoms, autumn leaves, storms, wind, fog, and even rainbows. Each story helps you practice English naturally and gives you expressions to talk about weather in real life. If you keep practicing like this every day, your English will sound smoother, more natural, and more confident. If you liked today's video, type yes in the comments. And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. We'll be here every day, walking with you on your English journey. See you tomorrow, right here on Practice English 365.